So, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this month's fireside chat of Startup Grind. This time, Startup Grind Luxembourg and Amsterdam are partnering for this promising fireside chat. And just a few housekeeping notes about Startup Grind. Startup Grind is the world's largest startup community, and we aim to change the world one company at a time. Because the thing is, we think that if you want to go fast, you go alone. And if you want to go far, you go together. And therefore, our mission is to give companies everywhere the education and opportunities they need to build, grow, and scale their companies. And our values are that we believe in making friends, not contacts. And we believe in giving first, not taken. And finally, we believe in helping others before helping yourself. But now, somehow, without further ado, I would like to invite you, if you have any questions, suggestions, remarks, just to put them in the chat and we will pick them up during our discussion. And now I would like to welcome first Marcello from Amsterdam. Hello, Marcello.
Hello, Steve. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me and the Dutch startup community.
So thank you, Marcello, for joining us. And then we have Daniel Clemets and Nigel Bergsa from Nobigdeal. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Nigel.
Hi, Steve and Marcello. Thank you
Hi,
for having
everybody.
us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's go immediately in medias res. Daniel or Nigel, it doesn't matter who, but could you just let us know what is No Big Deal?
Yeah, sure. So I'll take this one. So I guess just kind of going into the premise of No Big Deal. So we all know that things like exercise or walking, we know these things. That being said, it's not always so easy to necessarily really feel that way and actually take action and go do something to go exercise. We all know this. It's not always easy. The other thing is we often underestimate the kind of immediate impact that some of these doing something like this can actually have. Not just in terms of our overall health, but even in immediate the way that we're feeling. Now, there's two sort of hacks or mechanisms that are actually in our control. It's not always easy to control how we feel, but it is the two things that we can control is our movement and also it is our ability to achieve things. And when I'm saying this, I don't mean, if you win an Olympic, you feel slightly better. It's small things. It's, if you have something you need to do in a day, just getting up and making your bed, or you have an appointment, just opening. It's these small triggers that can really have a positive impact on your mood and emotion. And so this is the premise of No Big Deal. It's incentivizing movement and incentivizing these small achievements in order to positively impact people. So that's a kind of very, say the background, but in reality, in terms of how the app functions, it's a mobile app, which if you're in or France, you can get in the app stores and use today. So I hope you do. But either way, the app, essentially it's tailored to how you're feeling. So when you enter the app, you'll be asked how you're feeling. And based on that, you'll be recommended a series of challenges. And what these challenges are walking and running challenges. So there's a certain time limit and a goal. And there's also a reward linked to that. And these rewards come from different brands around the area. And so some examples would be, okay, let's say you're feeling really great, you're feeling excited, then a challenge might be from Adidas. So you can get an exclusive reward for the Adidas gift shop if you walk or let's say run 10 kilometers in the next couple hours. Maybe you're not feeling so great and you're just kind of feeling a bit meh. Then you could let's say take an easier challenge, walk maybe 5,000 steps a day for a few days and get a reward from maybe it's a delivery or something. Or you can also walk for sustainability initiatives. So contribute your steps towards planting trees or cleaning the ocean, or a number of other charity initiatives. So that is not so short, but overview of what we do.
Thank you. That's great. That's great. But I mean, that is what's now. But how did you get to it? Because I guess it's not that you get up one day and say, okay, now we want to save the world. We want to do good app and so on. How do you get about it? What gave you the incentive to think about it, about the concept?
Well, I think Nigel and I used to be colleagues. We were working at Tomorrow Street, which is an accelerator here in Luxembourg. It's a joint venture between Vodafone and the government, and we were working kind of closely with this later stage startup. So the idea of actually doing something wasn't that far fetched, since you're in that type of environment. And then both Nigel and I have this common interest in behavioral economics and game theory. It's a bit nerdy, but that's kind of how we started talking. And we were both kind of interested in technology that makes you feel things, and that's kind of where we started throwing around ideas on how can you use technology to actually appeal to your emotions and this kind of feel betterness, and that's really how it started. And we started meeting on weekends and kind of brainstorming around this, and we quickly came to the realization that we need someone smart on the team. So we we contacted our third co-founder, Quentin, who we had worked with. He was a consultant before, and then it just kind of grew from there. And you reach a point where you need to make a call. Are we going to do this or are we not going to do this? And of course, it's a massive step to quit your job and then venture out into this adventure. But I think in terms of timeline, I think it took us maybe 4 or 5 months of these late night meetings and weekends before we kind of decided that, well, this is actually, we want to give this a go, because you reach a point of no return basically after a while, that you need to make a call.
This means you took your time to put first the big toe in the cold water, and then the rest.
Yeah, basically.
And how did, okay, you had this behavioral economics, this nudging interest, the gamification and so on. But how did you come to this, that say, okay, the healthy aspect, let's call it like that, the healthy aspect. At what time came that idea up?
Nigel, you want to take that one, or?
Sure. I think, although I think it was you that actually brought it up initially, if I recall correctly, when we were talking about it. Because I think the idea, when we were initially talking about kind of rewarding things that inherently made people feel good, and I guess the natural next step, I think, Daniel, it was you that had the ideas of walking, and also, and this is something that's still on our roadmap, hopefully soon, but actually helping people stay off of their phone and being more digitally healthy. So it was always kind of, this was always the idea from the beginning, to be honest. And one thing that's actually interesting about us, this isn't necessarily a good or a bad thing, but I know when I talk to we talk to a lot of founders, obviously there's a lot of great community in Luxembourg and around Europe. And people are, I think actually, we have obviously pivoted some of our, some of the details in terms of how we apply that initial logic, but in a large way, we've actually held very true to what we initially set out to do. Of course, you change a bit, okay, your business model, who you're targeting, and things like that. But to be honest, I think that kind of core fundamental, very, very present in our app today. Good or a bad thing, because some people would say you have to pivot at some point. But yeah, we've held pretty true to the original intent.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I think because we always said that we're not a feel good app, but we're a feel better app, and this is kind of what links to the wellness aspect. It's like coming back to what Nigel said, the science of movement is quite, you don't need to do a lot to just rewire your brain a little. It doesn't mean you need to go out and run a marathon, but just taking a walk around the block, or just short walk with the dog or something, has a massive impact on how you're feeling. And then combined with this achievement aspect, which is the other part, it just seems like it's a very natural thing to do. So we're not reinventing the wheel basically, but we're just taking mechanisms that are already out there and packaging them slightly differently, maybe.
That's you just touched on it now. Is okay, you have this feel better aspect, but how did the reward come in? Because I guess it's something to nudge people to feel better together and to get it. And of course, probably there's a reward, there's a carrot and a stick. But how did you conceptualize that in order to make a business out of it? Or did you immediately have an idea saying, okay, we want to make a business out of it, and this is one of the areas? Or was that one part of a little bit the pivoting getting you to it?
So yeah, I can take at least start to answer this question, Daniel. So I think the initial concept was what we just mentioned. So it was around the well-being, but then of course, quite quickly, if we wanted to link the achievement aspect in there, and you want to actually link a real achievement with real rewards, the rewards have to come from somewhere. And I think this is where the kind of marketing and behavioral economics that Daniel and I have came into play. And it's interesting when you have a B2B2C company, because it's kind of a complete flip. You have to look at it from both sides. And in this case, what we realized is, every brand right now, it's easier than ever to reach people through, through social media marketing, through digital marketing, but it's becoming harder and harder to actually engage people. And this is just because people are becoming almost immune to advertisements. People, millennials and younger especially, they've just been grown up getting bombarded with it. And to be honest, it can have in small areas, but it's also, people have a very negative viewpoint of ads. At best they're annoying, and at worst, they're creating business models that, like Facebook or Meta now, I guess it's called, but that are kind of fundamentally based around keeping people addicted. So the whole digital marketing kind of area is actually, starting to have quite a negative impact on the world. And so we realized that, with kind of bringing brands into our user journey and letting brands create that for people, we were giving brands a positive way to actually engage and interact with people, which is something that's missing from marketing currently. And I think this is, why marketing has kind of a bad reputation. At the end of the day, marketing doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. It can be a very positive thing. And that's where we saw that we could have an impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how did you go about, you had the idea, the concept, a little bit how it could work out, but how did you develop it, implement it? How did you go about it? Knowing, okay, immediately an app, or is it would it be a website, or is it something sending on an SMS base, sending you or instant messages, sending you updates? How did you go about that? Because it's always one thing, the idea, a little bit the concept, what you would like to do, and then to implement it, develop it, exploit it.
Well, I think we were quite clear from the beginning that we wanted to make an application for this, but like Nigel said, it's the complexity of having a B2B2C platform. So we needed some sort of, a tool for businesses to use also for kind of creating these rewards that are in the app. So we started really by working with an outsourced company to help us develop this like an MVP, just to get something out there quickly and see, what is the reaction from the market, not only in terms of users, but also from the businesses. And I think that was the strategy from the start. Let's get an MVP out there as quickly as possible, so we can basically test it and get the feedback, so we can, then refine it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And the MVP, did you do it here in Luxembourg? Did you do it with France, or did you immediately with some of the targets, especially the business on the business side, did you do it immediately with them in order to have to prove, or was it more that, okay, you knew someone had a company, a B2C company, and which was a friend of yours, and then you go about it? Or did you really go, okay, let's jump ship, let's go for it, let's target our potential prospects and go for it with the MVP? How did you go about that?
Well, it was a little bit weird because when we started the company, this was just when the first lockdown came into place. So basically all the businesses that we wanted to target on the platform were closed. So which, you know, we used that time to develop the platform more or less. But after a while, as we were developing it, we started talking because things were starting to open up a little. So we started to talk to what we call friendly businesses here in Luxembourg, and I think we had maybe 20 of them that we said, you know, and we were quite opportunistic. We said, you know, let's join the platform for free, because it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. You know, we need the users, but we need the businesses, but you're not going to get the businesses unless you have the users, and vice versa. So we said, we'll bring you on for free for a little while, and we're super grateful to them that they kind of believed in the idea. So when we launched, I think we only launched with 20 companies initially, and then we've grown from there.
But 20 is already a lot. I mean, you were lucky with the 20, yeah?
Yeah, I guess it's a nice place to start, Luxembourg. Maybe people are friendly here, so maybe that's why.
We are open. And then on the other hand, you had the MVP out. Was the feedback the one you expected, or were there some surprises, both from the business side and from the end user side?
Nigel, I'll let you take it.
Yeah, from
there were
my side, I think.
surprises- Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, so I think, to be honest, I think I was quite positively surprised also on the initial 20. And that was credit to Daniel. He was kind of leading the charge on getting those first 20 on board. So I think that was quite positive, at least in the beginning. Just it was free trials, as I mentioned, but I think the businesses that was quite positive. I think that the businesses were open to giving it a shot. Maybe not investing money at the time, but they're still investing their time, and it's, at the end of the day, we're representing their brand, so this is important. That was a positive surprise. On the user side, I think, well, I don't know. So of course we had never founded a company before, and I think I'm sure a lot of startups, you know, they release their app on the Play Store. It's all of a sudden, you know, available in a couple countries, and you're thinking, oh, you know, 50,000 users overnight, which of course is never the case. It always takes a little bit more time. In terms of big surprises from the users, I don't think anything. There wasn't any one massive. I mean, you know, every week we're learning something new from users, and I think it's key just to be extremely close to them, because at the end of the day, our entire value proposition and the brands, it stems from being able to create a good user experience that makes people feel good. So we were constantly going to our users, and we were fortunate we didn't get 50,000 overnight, but over the course of a year or so, we were able to generate over 50,000 downloads, you know, closer to. And I think we used the data and the feedback from that very well. We did a lot of customer surveys and stuff, and I think the kind of what you'll see as the result is kind of the app today is completely different than it was, you know, 6 or even 3 months ago, in terms of how it functions. I don't think it was any one major surprise, but rather, sorry, one thing that was actually, I think, that I should bring up is we started off incentivizing users with brand rewards, so different discounts, things like that. We did start to do sometime in 2021 to let freeze and to clean the ocean. And I think one big surprise for us was that those were by far the most popular rewards. as compared to kind of benefiting yourself, let's say financially, people actually were far more motivated, or at least, you know, more so by these ones, which was extremely positive. And I think that's influenced a lot about how we've sort of, again, not necessarily pivoted, but adjusted our strategy in the last few months.
Okay, great. And okay, you were out there, and as you said, okay, the MVP. And how did you go about getting the first paying users, I mean, businesses on the platform? I mean, it's something very often, it's very hard. You have the MVP, you get it out in order to get feedback. I get about, I should say, the chicken and egg to solve it, to make an omelette afterwards, and to have a nice roast chicken at the same time. But how did you go about between the MVP and then, let's say, the commercial real, the first real commercial version where the user, the businesses were paying and so on?
Well, I think the MVP turned into our kind of first release that we started to monetize, to be fair. And I think the version that you see now is the second version of our app, and it's a completely different experience to what we used before. But I mean, I think it took maybe, I do remember our first paying customer, which was, and a shout out to Fuzu here in Luxembourg. It's a food delivery company. And I mean, it was just a result because we had these kind of 20 free trial companies on board from the start, and then it's just about leveraging that and starting selling what you have. But it's a super tough process in the beginning, because it also comes back to how you price what you're selling, and this is something that it's a trial and error that we used on this one, and we were quite open that we were experimenting with the pricing. So we had one pricing model that we tried to launch. It didn't necessarily work that well, and then we kind of twisted it. So we're trying new things basically we did try new things basically all the time in terms of the pricing. But I think it was an important strategic decision that we made early on, that because you have two choices basically. If you want to just go for growth and get as many users and businesses as possible, or do you actually want to show that you're able to generate some revenue? And we knew that we obviously had to go for funding at some point. And if you're able to show that you're generating revenue, especially in the environment that we were all in with the lockdown and restrictions, we knew we would be in a much better place. So we did focus a lot on actually getting the paying businesses on board, and not only getting them on board, but then actually making sure that they got the value out of the platform that they were paying for.
And linked to that, do you see yourself, I mean, did you see, or even today, do you see yourself more like a platform, an enabler? Or would you also say, okay, the platform is nice, we have the platform, but we also want to offer eventually services? I could imagine, let's you say, as you said, you have the businesses, but you need maybe to assist the businesses to devise the right rewards and so on. Is that something, a service you are doing yourself, or eventually partners are doing it for the businesses which are your customers? How is that one?
Well, I think the initial goal was to make the platform a self-service platform. So a company would register for an account, and then they would create the rewards, and then we would kind of manage the app. But we realized quite quickly that we need to work much more closely with the businesses than maybe we initially thought. So we have a very different approach now. We work super close and cooperate with the businesses in setting up these campaigns. And the good thing is that we're able to share a lot of best practices from the companies that we work with. So how difficult should the challenge be, for instance? What should the reward be? What's the optimal level of the value of the reward and the difficulty of the challenge? So we have a very, let's call it, hands-on approach when we work with the businesses on this, to make sure that the campaign actually works, and that they get the value out of the platform that we're selling them.
Okay. Okay, and until there, I mean, you need resources. Okay, it's your brains, it's your time, but about the resources, how did you go from the idea to having, okay, the paying customers on the platform? How did you resource that? When I say resources, is everything. It can be financial, technical, human resources, marketing, biz dev, and so on. How did you go about it? Because it's one thing.
I'm not sure I understand.
Let's see, Siri, sorry for that.
Okay.
They're always listening.
Yeah, I'm always working too much with time. So, how is it with the resources? How did you go about that? How did you plan because I guess there's always a moment where you need a resource. Either you need the HR, you need tech, you need funding, you need financial, you need customers, and so on. How did you go until now, today? How did you go about that?
Yeah, so I think at the outset, as Daniel mentioned, we needed an app. Of course, we also needed a website and everything else, but the app was, and it is the focal point, obviously, of our business. So the first thing was, okay, we need to get basically a fairly cost-effective way to create an app, which, as Daniel mentioned, we had somebody kind of lined up for that. We needed a bit of budget for marketing. Needed to kind of have some funds to support ourselves, and I think we were quite fortunate in getting a lot of support, family and friends. So we were able to kind of do a fairly large family and fool round, as they call it, which gave us kind of over 100,000 to work with at the very beginning, and this was kind of enough to give us a little to do things properly, get the app built, also take the leap that Daniel mentioned with a little bit, a very tiny one, that being said, pushing us to the right place to then seed in September.
And did you do this? The funding, was that something which you did intentionally, or did it just was it a little bit? Because very often in the beginning of a venture, an advice is to lay out the roadmap, the product roadmap, then eventually the biz dev roadmap, and eventually the resources roadmap. Was that already aligned, or did it come earlier or later? How was that one about the funding? I'm not just talking about the funding.
So I think so sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
No, I said you can answer it.
Okay, so I think so. Kind of what came first, the funding or the plan, maybe.
Yeah.
So we started with 6 months before we made the decision to kind of go full forward. We'd already kind of built a kind of pretty robust business plan, let's say. So I think it definitely started with that. Of course, once you're actually on the market, everything kind of changes, and obviously you adapt. But it definitely started. We were raising fairly significant sums of money even very early on. We had some partnerships in place, like the app and everything, but and some businesses had already kind of committed to trialing us. So this was kind of what we were able to use to say, okay, look, we're three hopefully guys that you trust with a good idea, and we've already kind of got initial market feedback, and then with that we were able to get enough money to kind of get us up and running.
And take a few questions now also from chat. One is also really a little bit related to the team, to the founding team. You mentioned, okay, you are two, and then you had a third. We have a third co-founder. How did you go about the team? Was it clear, more or less, amongst the three of you in the beginning? Okay, I'm more this one, I'm more this one, I'm more this one, or was it just a little bit opportunistic? How did that go about? The roles in the team itself.
I think the constellation of the three co-founders is quite there's a lot of diversity of thought between the three of us. I mean, from the outside, we might look a bit similar. I'm slightly older than Quentin and Nigel, but we have a quite different background and different strengths. And I don't think we thought about it that much before, but it certainly became evident a while into this journey that we certainly have different areas of strength and which work to our advantage. We do think very, very differently, all three of us, and which sometimes leads to a lot of heated conversations. Not heated conversations, but it always we do. I mean, I'm so glad to be working with them, because you don't want to work with people that think like you, because you need to be challenged a little. And I think the three of us, we have this dynamic where we're kind of, I would say we're one of our best features, to be honest, is that we're able to operationalize our creativity in a way, because we are super or quite creative when it comes to coming up with things or things that we want to do, but taking that into something and making it into a reality and something operational, that's super difficult. But I don't think, I mean, during the years during my career, I've never been in a team like this where we're able to do both, basically. So it wasn't a conscious choice from the beginning that this is how we're going to build a team, but it certainly turned out to be a very fortunate way of doing it. I'm not sure you agree, Nigel. I hope you do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's, as you said, I think we all approach problems very differently, which is why it's so, because then, whenever one of us is kind of stuck on something, they go to the other one, and you're always going to get a completely different kind of approach to it, which is great. And likewise, we're also, of course, not afraid to challenge each other. Some heated discussions, of course, but no, obviously in a very healthy way. And I think, it works really well.
It does.
Okay, and then there's also questions popping in. I mean, you mentioned Luxembourg was a good place to start because friendly environment and so on. And if I'm not mistaken, you have been part of the Fit for Start program, or still are, I don't know how it is. Was that something which came at the right time for your venture? Or would you say maybe a little bit earlier would have been better, or a little bit later would have been better? How would you see it, the program, for your venture now? Not if it was good or bad, but the time.
Oh, it's a really good question. I mean, with a startup, you'll probably often say the money came at just the right time, although it probably could have come earlier and you would have said the same thing. So, no, I think the Fit for Start program, for us, it kind of corresponded with also the closing of our seed round, which was very fortunate, to be honest, because at that point in time, okay, you obviously have a plan of what to do with the seed funding, but you also, putting that plan into action and doing it in the right way, it's kind of the second version of your company, or at least it was for us. And so the Fit for Start program was quite well aligned, to be honest. It kind of took us through the same sort of logical process that we should have been doing anyways. And so from that perspective, I think it was really, really well timed.
Okay. And then there is also a question which pops up now, I see in the chat also very often, is about the overhead, the admin part. This means it's nice when you start small, you're a small team. Eventually you are just delocalized, you have satellites and so on. And how is it evolving? I mean, from the overhead side, is it getting bigger, or is it still manageable before it explodes? Because I guess you're a little bit you're on the curve, you're on the I wish you have passed the inflection point and the hockey stick is now coming, and the rest of it, if it's ladder or not, that we will see. The thing is, how is it with that one? How do you manage that one? How did you approach that one? Did you control it in let's just say in a controlled manner, or was it a little bit by ad hoc it established yourself? because as in a venture, you're why I'm coming from there is in the venture you're very often on the day-to-day. You're on the delivery side and so on, the customer side, and very often the admin part comes often as a wave afterwards. And could flood you. If you're not a good surfer, as a surfer, you go underneath the wave or with the wave, but very often ventures get overrun by this wave. And then they are put a little bit on hold or at risk. How was that with you? Or is it, maybe it hasn't arrived yet? Maybe that's also something.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
I don't think I don't think it has, to be honest. The team now, we are 5 full-time employees in the company, and then we have a few people that are working part-time, helping us out. And we were very fortunate to find the right people, because we're still quite small. But we've been super fortunate with the people that we have on the team now, because those first people that you hire are, they are super important to the future of the company. And we've been, I could say that we're very good at hiring people, but I think we've been super lucky, if I'm being completely honest, with finding the people that we have now. In terms of the admin bit, I think I would maybe say that we are one step ahead of this. We do realize that we need to grow, and I think I was speaking with one other startup here from Luxembourg, and they are in the process of hiring a lot of people, and it can be super challenging to actually find the right people. And it's not necessarily something you think about a lot going into a venture like this, but finding the right people, it's way trickier than it seems. And we also have a lot of people here in Luxembourg. We also have people from outside. So I think the remote working is also helping us find the right people.
And there comes also something about the market. The thing is, you mentioned Luxembourg is good to start in order to test and then to go abroad. With your product, as it's a little bit, it's not a digital product. I don't want to say the digital, but it's a digital service, which in fact it's done by the end user. The end user is doing it. You are not between quotation marks. You're not selling a product or a service to them, but you're assisting them that they live better. Let's call it like that, and get rewards or are able to reward somebody else. How did you go about other markets? Did you have them immediately in mind? Were there some where you said, okay, these are the ones we would like to be in because for XYZ reason? How did you go about that, about the international aspect?
So I think we were probably opportunistic by necessity. So the first next market was Belgium, and this is obviously okay. There's the border. The app was also quite early on in French, so we knew that there was a kind of synergy there because Luxembourg is obviously very French speaking as well. And because our co-founder Quentin, he's also he's based there, he's from there, so we very quickly kind of expanded to Liège. And as Daniel mentioned, this kind of corresponded with the second lockdown, which was kind of limiting a lot of the use cases that we had as well, or which types of businesses we could work with. And the other good thing about Belgium was that there was a lot more. What was lacking in Luxembourg was larger e-commerce platforms. Just because a lot don't come to here, and also it's just a smaller market, so there's not as much demand for services like that. So these two things kind of made it the natural next step to go to Belgium. And then since then okay, now we have all of these partners in Belgium that we developed over the last year, and then so just in the last month, there's a lot of carryover from Belgium into both the Netherlands and to France, both language, culture, but also the brands that we have. And so with each kind of progressive next step to the next countries, it's becoming easier and easier, and we're just kind of going to the places where it makes the most sense, basically. Because as you mentioned, from a technical perspective, it's not really that difficult for us to go anywhere, to be honest. You can pop up in the US tomorrow if we really wanted to, but it's more about kind of carrying over the partners we have, because that is one of our strengths, of course.
And Steve, and just considering Netherlands and Benelux, France, do you see differences in terms of user behavior, and how do you work with data to offer and create a great customer experience?
I think I need to be pretty careful answering this question.
I was just going to warn you, Nigel.
Sorry. So I think it's a bit too early to tell. This is going to be my politically correct answer. I think that we did.
Maybe you can rephrase the question in your mind and then give another answer.
But so I think that one thing that so in terms of where we're kind of collecting data and how we did this, so we did kind of English speaking surveys and French speaking surveys, which I think kind of was the most obvious sort of divide in our user base, because there was a lot of like expats, and then there was a lot of French speaking Belgian population. We saw quite a few differences. I think especially with expats, it's obviously a different demographic compared to and so from that perspective, in terms of how they use the app, for instance, we noticed that some groups of people were more focused on the rewards, and some people were more focused on the well-being aspect. And this was a big part of our kind of rebranding, is figuring out, okay, which group do we want to, which one is actually using the app the way that we want them to, and getting the right value, and how do we kind of shift it towards that.
Fantastic. That's a great approach. And something else that I'd like to ask, because I'm passionate about how platforms like yours, how they define their matching strategy. So one of the things that caught my attention is that Nobigdeal matches the users, the customers' mood with physical challenges. So, and we know that getting the matching right is one of the key success factors in platforms. So can you tell us a bit more how this matching on mood works? Because I love that, right? So you could just opt for what you feel like doing today, or what you like doing usually.
No, I think, and you're right. I think it's one of the things that really sets us apart as a company, and the service that we provide, this kind of mood thing. And we don't, unlike, let's call it traditional digital marketing, that's all about kind of knowing everything about you, your interest and blah blah blah. The only thing we care about is how you're feeling today, and let's make you feel a little bit better. Hopefully, that's all that we do. And it's tailored in the sense that, depending on what mood you choose, it'll affect how difficult the challenge will be and stuff. But we also the messaging that we have for you is tailored to your mood. So if you're high energy, we want to keep that momentum up for you. Basically. And if you're low energy, it's we want to just make you boost you a little bit. So it's, again, we're unique because we're not telling you how you're feeling. It's like we do appreciate that you're not always in the mood to run 10K. We all wake up feeling sometimes like, well, this is a bad day, basically, and that's why we're there. We just want to make you feel a little bit better about yourself, basically.
That's
so, and
great.
this is why we ask the question. So, how are you feeling today? Let us know, and let's get you going, basically.
Yeah, and then you are also inviting your users to try something new, right? So.
Yeah, exactly.
Nigel, you wanted to add something.
I was going to say the other kind of way, and I think this is going to be one of the big focuses for us over the next few months, is how to tailor it even more to the moods, because I think this is a major aspect. So another way, we're kind of doing it right now, and this is much more an art than a science, but also the types of rewards you see are also kind of tailored to how you're feeling, which is yeah.
Okay, then there's also, as we are on to the offers and services, there's a question coming in asking if the offers are based on the data you gained from your site, or based on brands' marketing promotion strategies.
So it's basically from a brand promotion perspective. So we don't sell data, because that's one of the things we're trying to kind of fix. So sometimes I've talked about the data that we're using, and we are using well, to be honest, it's usually self-reported data, surveys, some things to do with, okay, at scale, what type of offer is working best, but we're not using, let's say, individual data. We don't use any of the step counting data. So we're quite against that. As I mentioned, it's for brands, the value is the engagement, and it's the, well, it's at the end of the day, it's hopefully good branding, right? I mean, they're supporting people's health, and you know, that's something that hopefully people appreciate as well.
Mhm. Okay, we're coming close to the end, and eventually some other questions are coming up. But there is also something, a question which is related to it. I mean, you're on the B2B2C. On one hand, you need to manage or make the B2B happy and the B2C and the C happy. What was more challenging so far, the B or the C, or was it a little bit the same, or maybe too early to say?
I think the C.
Yeah.
I think businesses are large and simple creatures. You know, okay, I'm oversimplifying, but they want engagement from users, and if we can provide that, then when we do provide that, the businesses are quite happy. So I think it's you know, from a user perspective, people are very complicated. Getting people interested in something in their phone is not an easy task, and keeping them interested and helping them actually form healthy habits, you know, over days and weeks and months, it's not easy at all. And this is where it becomes a very fun challenge, but I'd say it's definitely more complex, which, as I said, this is what makes our offering unique, and it's going to let us continue to be unique into the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, you know, so I think we kind of answer the chicken or the egg question on that one. We did, it was a conscious choice that let's focus on the consumer side. Let's get that journey and that engagement. Let's lock it down and make it work, and then the like build it and they will come kind of thing. So and we also see it now, the results of it. It's so much easier to get the businesses on board once you solve the kind of the customer journey in the app. And I mean, to be a bit self-critical, we were kind of trying to do both at the same time for a long while, and it we sat down, we had some deep discussions around this, and we said, look, we really need to focus on the consumer side, this, because it'll unlock all the other steps basically in that journey.
Okay, but that wraps up a very, very interesting fireside chat. The other thing is, how should I say? We at Fires here at Startup Grind don't only want something from you, but we also eventually would like to give you something. What do you think that the Startup Grind community, not only the Luxembourgish one, but the international one, eventually could assist you in order maybe in getting to the next step and so on? If there's anything. If not, if you're completely happy, we are also happy.
There's definitely a few things I think startups can. I mean, for me, I think at the end of the day, people are the hardest thing to solve, and I think that goes also with connections, right? It's very difficult to find people in businesses that are necessarily willing to take risk on small companies. And I think there's some companies that are doing it very well, but on average, at the end of the day, it's people in charge of a budget, and are they going to risk that budget on a company that's a bit younger and maybe not as not as proven. And so I think getting kind of connections into people that are willing to kind of take that risk in wherever they are in the world, what type of business, I think for me, this is the biggest thing.
Okay, thank you.
On top of a list of many things, though, of course, startups need to.
I said we are coming to the end. And Daniel, anything to add?
No, I mean, I echo what Nigel is saying. The community aspect that you have, we're super happy to be part of it, and it's because startup life is very different from any other type of life, right? And you really, it's community in its truest sense in that regard, and you feel like you're part of something bigger. when it comes to these things. So yeah.
Okay. So then, in the name of Startup Grind Luxembourg, I would like to thank you both, as well in the name of Startup Grind Amsterdam also, of course.
Thank you.
And we wish you a lot of luck and hope to stay better. And maybe you could add some rewards on the golf side. Then it would be marvelous to have that one.
I'm working on it.
It's in
I'm
the
working on
pipeline.
it. I've got a couple. Yeah. I'm also
Okay,
a golfer,
great.
so yeah.
Thank you very much.
Will do. Thank you so much for having us.
Really appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye bye.